Handling plasterboard on site can be tricky, with significant hazards that need to be managed. By following the steps in this video, you can do this quickly and easily. Step 1. Site preparation. Before the delivery of the plasterboard, it's good practice to clean the work environment from all existing rubbish and trip hazards. A clean environment instantly reduces the risks of slips, trips and falls, and it also increases your ability to move around and be more productive. Place your tools in a spot where they won't get in the way of your work. If we can prepare really well, it will dramatically reduce the risks associated with handling and hanging plasterboard. When the truck arrives ready to be unloaded, make sure that the unloading is done in a safe manner. Do not lift too many sheets at a time. Step 2. Placement of the plasterboard. The placement of the plasterboard when it's delivered can either help the plasterers or dramatically slow them down. Best practice has shown that having the plasterboard leant up against a wall reduces the number of risks, as long as it is secured to the wall that it is being leant up against. When leaning the plasterboard stack against a wall, it is important to consider the strength of the wall. With timber framed walls, the maximum limit of sheets is 20. Steel framed walls are limited to 10 sheets per stack. These recommendations are there so that the walls aren't pushed out of square and to ensure the safety of everyone within the workspace. Here are a few ways you can secure the plasterboard safely. Strapping horizontally around the whole stack, including the studs on the wall. Strapping the plasterboard vertically around all sheets and the stud-framed wall. Or using a plasterboard restraint tag. This is a tag that is screwed off to the wall and is placed on the outside sheet. Whichever option you choose to use, it needs to be strong enough to do the job and is easily detached and reapplied. Some of the benefits to stacking against the wall are: it reduces manual handling issues for the installer, bending over, lifting, etc. It has reduced risks when cutting the plasterboard, fewer lacerations. Sheets don't break as easily when stood up, the waste in materials is reduced. Step 3. Manual handling. The number one safety risk associated with hanging plasterboard is manual handling. Lifting and manoeuvring the plasterboard creates the greatest issues for the installer. So how do we reduce these risks? We want to reduce bending over the plasterboard to cut it and lifting from awkward positions. Because of the weight of plasterboard, as much as possible it's encouraged to work in pairs to reduce the chance of injuries. It's also a good idea to practice the correct way to lift. The general rule is to keep a straight back and bent knees. It's also important not to lift too heavy a load. Where possible, the risks of manual handling can be further reduced through the use of a mechanical aid, such as a plaster lifter or plaster hoist. This can minimise the need for lifting, pulling, pushing, restraining or adopting awkward postures while handling plasterboard, and in some applications it may eliminate the manual handling entirely. Lastly, when cutting the plaster sheets to size, remove offcuts from the workspace so they don't create a trip hazard. Step 4. Hanging the plasterboard. First, set up your tools and equipment neatly and in order of use. It's key to efficiency and safely doing your work. Another potential risk when hanging plaster is working off a platform. The way you set up your platform can reduce these issues. It's important to make sure that the platform you use is secure and solid to work from. Best practice is to arrange the trestle so that it is running parallel with the plasterboard that's going to be hung. This allows you to move along the platform with confidence without having to maintain constant sight of your footing. It's also important to consider how easy it is to climb up and down your platform. This includes keeping the floor clear of any trip hazards. Ideally, you want to be able to step onto your platform without overstretching. Having extra help to pass plaster to you can be valuable and time efficient. By remembering each other and following these basic steps when hanging plaster, we can help keep each other safe.